how do you think that both these countries will be able to have influence in terms of any direction or measures taken towards de-escalation? And what do you make of the ways in which Pakistan and China can work together to actually achieve that?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, from the Chinese perspective, we highly appreciate and applaud the very constructive and positive role played by Pakistan right now, aimed at bringing to an end the war of aggression launched by the United States and Israel against Iran. I think it's a mission of great difficulty, of course, almost up to impossibilities. But the fact that Pakistan is one of the very few countries in the world of today able and capable of playing that role speaks loudly about the indispensability of Pakistan in the global affairs. Now, from the Chinese perspective, we do not want to see the start of this war against Iran to start with. We do not want to see any escalation because we believe that this war is a war of injustice. It's a war of choice, actually, and it's a war of great consequence, not only for Iran, but for the whole region, and eventually, if it is not brought to an end, for the whole world. And this war most likely will result in the combination of three crises altogether. The energy crisis, which is already starting right now, the economic crisis, which may impact many countries in the world, if not the global economy as a whole, and then a major, most likely, the unprecedented financial crisis eventually. So the sooner this war is brought to an end, the better for mankind. And if Pakistan will succeed in bringing the parties together to the same negotiation table and eventually to end the hostility, I think Pakistan will be hailed as one of the very important countries playing a very critical and crucial role in defending peace in the world of today.
Right. Professor Victor, can you also help us understand how can we move forward in terms of the kind of conditionalities that you see emerging from within this discussion? Of course, the talks was something that were continuing even prior to these attacks, and a lot of the conditions now even towards any aspect of de-escalation are similar in terms of what the U.S. has put forward in its own demands, and it's in the proposal that it has communicated to Iran. And Iran, of course, has asked for its own conditions for any discussions to take place. And one of which is very important, which Pakistan and China have also jointly talked about, is the cessation of all hostilities. Will that be something that these countries can actually achieve before any discussion takes place?
Well, first of all, philosophically speaking, to have any meaningful negotiations between any parties, the trust will be absolutely necessary and almost indispensable. So I think the first thing for the United States to do is to really restore whatever amount of trust that will be considered a minimum as far as Iran is concerned. Because I think based on the activities of the United States over the past uh, uh, several months, for example, starting from the 12th-day war back in July 2025, and then again this sudden attack started on February the 28th, 2026. Most likely, the United States has destroyed any iota of trust as far as Iran is concerned. So restoring minimum amount of trust is absolutely necessary. The United States cannot do one thing while saying another thing, and then doing one thing completely contrary to what it has promised. So I think this is the first step. The second step is that even though the United States is on the verge of major escalation, I think the whole world need to convince the United States that there will be consequences if you decide to escalate, as there will be consequences when the United States suddenly attacked Iran back on February the 28th. I think if anyone in the United States who launched this war back on February the 28th, 2026, did not anticipate the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, he or she probably will be guilty of dereliction of duty. And so if anyone today in the United States who wants to escalate does not anticipate major consequences of this escalation by the United States. For example, further exposure and escalation of the energy crisis, the economic crisis, and the financial crisis, for example, pushing mankind into a major conflagration, for example, then they will be again derelict of their duties. So I think President Trump should really know what he's talking about and what will be the major consequences for peace for mankind or a global combination of three crises together, in addition to the loss of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives on both sides. And for Israel, I hope it will also conclude that if they continue to launch war after war after war against more and more neighboring countries and countries in that particular region, there will be consequences for for Israel and for the people in Israel. And if they want to really deny and deprive the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people as if they are not up to standard, for example, or not on an equal level with the Jewish people in Israel, the whole world will not tolerate that. So I think this is the moment of truth, and I hope Pakistan will really play this very important, indispensable role to achieve this impossibility, for example, in restoring sanity and trust and peace and tranquility to that region plagued with war and killing and aggression and all kinds of killings of people in different parts and different countries in that region.
Absolutely. And I'm glad, Professor Victor, that you mentioned Israel, because that's an important factor to the equation, too. It's not just Iran and the United States. There's a lot of influence that that we had seen previously coming in from Israel as well as to what really is going to be the matters of discussions and, of course, in terms of actions, too. How is that going to be affected in any way, a role that mediators and other countries can play, including Pakistan and China, in terms of restricting the kind of actions that we have seen, and you've just mentioned Israel taking place previously also, especially with reference to Gaza. We've seen the US and particularly Mr. Trump had talked about how it is going to be influencing Israel to hold its part of the deal, but that did not really play out exactly like that. And even now, a lot of concern remains in terms of whatever discussion towards de-escalation take place, will Israel be also made to hold the deal, and will it actually listen? Do you think that that is going to be an important factor in deciding the way forward, and how exactly will that conversation be made with the United States?
I personally think it will be much better and easier if the United States and Iran directly talk about how to end this war. Because if you involve Israel from the very beginning, it will be more as a mission of impossibility. Now, on the other hand, if the United States and Iran decide to end the war as soon as possible, which at this stage is also a mission of impossibility, then I believe Israel eventually need to size up the situation and come to a better conclusion, because I think it will be completely an act of insanity if Israel wants to engage with Iran in a war, if the United States bails out of this war. So I think it eventually will lead Israel to do the right thing sooner or later. The sooner the better, of course. So I think we need to separate the United States from Israel rather than allowing Israel to hijack the United States onto the bandwagon of those people in Israel who want to eliminate Iran as a country, as a regime, as a government, or even as a civilization. So I truly believe the American people are not enemies of the Iranian people, and the United States does not have a legitimate reason to fight this war against Iran. Whereas people like Prime Minister Netanyahu may have been dreaming about how to push the United States into a war against Iran, not only for months or even for years, but for decades. So I think this is, again, a very high point of skill and diplomacy, and how to better understand the United States and Israel in their separate way or separate capacity vis-a-vis Iran, and how to really make sure that no one will be hijacked by the emotions or spur of the moment, for example, and how to really reach the conclusion which will be better for the fundamental interests of the United States or the American people on the one hand, for Iran and the Iranian people on the other hand, not only for today, but for years and months and decades or even longer into the future, and how those people who want to do harm to Iran, to the Iranian people, and to Iranian civilization will be brought to justice and brought to an end in their ambition of playing the role of a hegemon in its own self in the region of the Middle East.